In the year 2250, Earth had changed dramatically. The skies were filled with flying cars, and cities reached high into the clouds. However, not everything was perfect. War had spread among different planets and species, and Earth itself was on the brink of destruction. In the midst of this chaos, a small town named Greenvale remained peaceful. The people there lived simple lives, far away from the battles. One day, a strange ship landed near the town, and from it emerged an alien woman. She had green skin, bright yellow eyes, and long silver hair that waved in the wind. The townsfolk were terrified, believing her to be a threat. They ran away, leaving her alone, but one brave soul did not flee. His name was Mark. Mark was a soldier who had seen much pain and suffering on the battlefield. He was not afraid of the alien woman. Instead, he walked toward her, curious about her presence. "Are you here to harm us?" he asked, his voice steady. The alien woman looked at him, her eyes full of sadness. "No," she whispered. "I am here to die." Mark was taken aback. "What do you mean?" he asked, confused. She took a deep breath and explained. "My name is Lyra. I come from the planet Zorath. My people are fighting a terrible war. I have seen too much death, pain, and destruction. I did not want to fight anymore. I came to Earth to find peace, but now I am lost." Mark felt a mix of emotions. He understood her pain. He had lost friends in battle, too. "You don't have to die," he said softly. "There is so much more to live for. You can find peace here, away from the war." Lyra shook her head. "You don't understand. My fate is sealed. I must take responsibility for my people." Mark thought for a moment. "What if we talk to each other? Maybe we can find a way to help you," he suggested. Surprisingly, Lyra agreed. They sat down together on the grass, and for hours they shared their stories. Mark told her about his life on Earth, how he learned to fight to protect his own people. He shared his dreams of a peaceful world where no one had to suffer. Lyra listened intently, her heart slowly opening. She told him about Zorath, how her planet was rich in beauty, but war had turned it into a place of darkness. As they talked, they began to understand each other. Mark saw that Lyra was not a monster. She was a victim of her circumstances, and Lyra saw the strength in Mark's compassion. They began to form a bond that felt almost like friendship. But suddenly, a loud noise interrupted their conversation. It was a drone, a machine from Earth that had been sent to find Lyra. It hovered above them, buzzing menacingly. "Capture protocol activated," it announced. "Return the alien to command." Mark jumped to his feet. "No! You can't take her!" he shouted. The drone began to scan for Lyra. Mark felt his heart race. He looked at Lyra and saw the fear in her eyes. "We need to run," he said urgently. They dashed into the woods, with the drone following closely behind them. Mark's mind raced, trying to think of a plan. After a few minutes of running, they came to a small river. There was no time to lose. "We have to jump in," Mark said. Without hesitating, they both dove into the cold water, underneath. The surface they swam for as long as they could. When they finally resurfaced, the drone was still searching, but it couldn't see them. They hurriedly swam to the bank and crawled out of the water, shivering but relieved. Lyra looked at Mark with admiration. "You saved me," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Mark smiled, but he knew the danger was far from over. "We can't stay here. We need to find a safe place," he replied. As they walked deeper into the forest, night began to fall. They built a small campfire, the flames flickering in the darkness. Mark prepared some food he had in his pack and shared it with Lyra. They sat by the fire, and for the first time Lyra smiled. "Thank you for helping me," she said. "You risked your life for someone like me." Mark shook his head. You are not just an alien. You are a person, and you deserve to live. Their bond grew stronger as the night continued. They shared stories about their hopes and dreams, and together they planned ways to escape the drone. They talked about finding a spaceship that could take Lyra back to her planet safely. As dawn approached, they heard a rustling in the bushes. Mark quickly turned to Lyra, signaling her to be quiet. Out of the trees stepped a group of soldiers, looking for them. "There they are," one shouted. Mark's heart raced once more. He had to protect Lyra. "We have to run again," he whispered urgently. They grabbed their things and took off once more, darting between the trees. The soldiers pursued, yelling at them to stop. But Mark and Lyra didn't stop. They ran faster, fueled by fear and determination. Finally, they reached an old abandoned hangar. They rushed inside, hoping it would provide shelter. Inside the hangar, they found pieces of forgotten technology. Lyra's eyes sparkled with hope as she recognized parts from an old spaceship. "I can fix this," she said. Mark nodded, knowing this was their chance. He helped her gather the parts while keeping an eye out for their pursuers. The sound of footsteps grew louder outside. "They'll find us soon," Mark warned, panic rising in his chest. Lyra worked, quickly, using her knowledge from Zorath. Mark stood guard, ready to protect her at all costs. Time passed slowly, and every second felt like an eternity. Finally, Lyra shouted, "I did it! The ship is ready!" They rushed inside the small vessel just as the soldiers burst into the hangar. Mark quickly started the engines while Lyra prepared for takeoff. With a loud roar, the spaceship lifted off the ground, and Mark felt a thrill of hope. They zoomed into the sky, leaving the soldiers far behind. Lyra looked at Mark with tears in her eyes. "You saved my life. I will never forget you," she said. As the planet Earth grew smaller beneath them, Mark felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had escaped, and Lyra could find her way home. "You can find peace now," he whispered, as they traveled towards the stars, ready for a new beginning. The desert wind whipped around Ilara, stinging her skin with sand. Her 3 hearts hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the alien landscape. The crimson sun bled across the horizon, painting the jagged rocks in shades of blood, orange, and violet. It was beautiful, she thought, a tragic beauty that mirrored her own impending end. She was a Xylosian, a species known for their intellect and their fragile bodies. Captured during a scouting mission gone wrong, she was now a prisoner of the Terran Federation, a human empire that spanned 100 star systems. They considered her a valuable asset, a source of information about her people. But Ilara knew too much, secrets that could cripple the Xylosian war effort. So they were going to execute her. The Terrans had brought her to this desolate planet, far from any human settlement. They said it was to prevent any Xylosian attempt to rescue her. Ilara suspected it was also to break her spirit, to make her death a lonely and insignificant one. A figure emerged from the shadow of a massive rock formation. Sergeant Major Thomas "Tom" Blake, a human soldier with a face carved from granite and eyes that held a lifetime of battles. He was her guard, her jailer, and now her executioner. He stopped a few feet away, his expression unreadable. He carried a pulse rifle, the weapon that would end her life. Ilara closed her eyes, preparing herself for the inevitable. She thought of her family, her home, the vibrant blue forests of Xylos. A single tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. "Ready?" Blake's voice was rough, devoid of any emotion. Ilara opened her eyes. "Yes," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Do what you must." Blake hesitated for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. He raised the rifle, aiming it at her chest. Ilara braced herself, waiting for the searing pain, the oblivion. But the shot never came. Blake lowered the rifle, his face a mask of internal conflict. He looked at Ilara, his gaze searching. "I can't," he said, his voice barely audible. "I can't do it." Ilara stared at him, confusion warring with disbelief. "What?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why?" Blake shook his head, as if trying to clear his thoughts. "I don't know," he said. I can't kill you." Ilara couldn't understand. Humans were ruthless, efficient killers. They had waged war across the galaxy, conquering and destroying everything in their path. Why would this one human, this hardened soldier, suddenly refuse to carry out his orders? "You don't understand," Ilara said. "I am a threat. I know things that could hurt your people." "I know," Blake said, "but you're also a person. I can't just execute you in cold blood." Ilara had never encountered such a sentiment from a human before. They saw her as a weapon, a tool to be used and discarded. This man, this soldier, was seeing her as something more. "What will you do?" Ilara asked. "They will punish you for this." "I'll figure something out," Blake said, "but I'm not going to kill you." He lowered the rifle and slung it over his shoulder. "Come on," he said. "We need to get out of here." Ilara hesitated. "Where are we going?" "I don't know yet," Blake said, "but anywhere is better than here." He turned and started walking away into the deepening shadows of the desert. Ilara watched him for a moment, then made her decision. She followed him. They walked for hours, the only sound the crunch of their boots on the sand and the whisper of the wind. Blake led her through a maze of canyons and rocky outcrops, always keeping a watchful eye on the horizon. "Why are you doing this?" Ilara asked after a while. "What do you hope to gain?" Blake stopped and looked at her. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe I'm just tired of the killing. Maybe I'm just trying to do something right for once." He sighed and looked away. "I've seen too much death," he said. "Too much destruction. I just can't be a part of it anymore." Ilara understood. She had seen the same things, the same horrors of war. But she had always believed that it was necessary, that it was the only way to protect her people. Now, she wasn't so sure. As they traveled, Ilara began to learn more about Blake. He was a veteran of countless battles, a highly decorated soldier. But beneath the hardened exterior, he was a man haunted by his past, a man searching for redemption. Blake, in turn, learned about Ilara's world, her culture, her hopes for the future. He saw her not as an alien threat, but as an intelligent, compassionate being, a victim of a war that neither of them wanted. Days turned into weeks as they journeyed, across the desolate planet. They scavenged for food and water, always aware of the danger of being discovered. They were fugitives, hunted by both the Terran Federation and the Xylosian Empire. One evening, as they sat around a small fire, Ilara asked Blake a question that had been weighing on her mind. "What will happen when we reach civilization?" she said. "Will you turn me in?" Blake looked at her, his eyes filled with sadness. "I don't know," he said. "I wish I had an answer for you, but I just don't know." He stood up and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. Ilara watched him go, her heart filled with a mixture of hope and despair. The next morning they reached the edge of the desert. In the distance they could see the lights of a human settlement. It was a small outpost, a mining town on the edge of nowhere. But it was civilization, and it meant that their journey was coming to an end. Blake stopped and turned to Ilara. "This is it," he said. "We have to decide what to do." Ilara looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and sadness. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." Blake stepped closer and took her hand. "I wish there was another way," he said, "but I don't see one." He led her towards the town, his grip on her hand firm. As they approached the perimeter fence, they were stopped by a group of soldiers. "Halt!" one of the soldiers shouted. "Identify yourselves." Blake stepped forward, his face grim. "I am Sergeant Major Thomas Blake," he said, "and this is my prisoner, an alien combatant." Ilara felt a wave of despair wash over her. She had known this was coming, but it still hurt. She had come to trust Blake, to see him as a friend. Now he was betraying her. The soldiers surrounded them, their weapons trained on Ilara. Blake looked at her, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry," he said. "I had to do it." But then, something unexpected happened. Blake raised his voice, addressing the soldiers. "But I have discovered something," he said. "She has given me valuable intel that could help us win this war. But she will only speak with someone in command." The soldiers exchanged confused glances. "What are you saying, Sergeant Major?" one of them asked. "I'm saying," Blake said, "that this prisoner is too valuable to be executed. She needs to be interrogated by someone who knows what they're doing. I'm taking her to headquarters." The soldiers hesitated. They knew Blake was a highly respected officer. They didn't want to question his judgment. "Very well," the lead soldier said, "but we'll need to escort you." "That won't be necessary," Blake said. "I can handle it myself." He turned to Ilara, his eyes filled with a silent plea. "Come on," he said. "Let's go." Ilara looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what he was planning, but she decided to trust him. She followed him as he walked towards the town, away from the soldiers, towards an uncertain future. The curiosity had reached its peak, and a climax was nearing. Together they walked towards the town, their steps echoing in the silence of the desert. The fate of a soldier and an alien woman hanged in the balance. The planet Zylara nestled among sparkling stars. This planet was home to a unique species, the Zylarans, known for their shimmering skin and deep empathy for all living beings. One of them, a young woman named Lena, had a special gift. She could see into the hearts of others, which made her both revered and feared. One day, an unexpected event shattered the peace of Zylara. An advanced spaceship, sleek and metallic, landed on the planet's surface. Humans, explorers from Earth, stepped out, their faces filled with wonder and nervousness. Among them was a soldier named Jake, tall and strong, with a heart full of courage. The humans came to Zylara hoping to learn about its wonders. However, they were not welcomed with open arms. Many Zylarans viewed the humans as a threat. Confusion turned into chaos when an unfortunate incident escalated. Jake accidentally stumbled upon an ancient Zylaran temple, breaking a sacred statue. This act was seen as an attack, and the Zylarans turned against the humans. Lena, feeling the distress of both her people and the humans, sought a way to bridge the growing divide. She approached the other Zylarans and urged them to be calm, explaining that the humans did not mean to offend them. But her words fell on deaf ears. The Zylarans decided they must protect their sacred land, and they captured the human explorers, including Jake. In the heart of Zylara's sacred grove, where ancient trees whispered secrets, Lena watched as her fellow Zylarans prepared to punish the humans. She noticed Jake, who stood strong despite the circumstances. His blue eyes shone with a mix of anger and sadness. Lena felt a connection with him, sensing his pure heart. As the Zylarans began to chant their ancient rites, Lena stepped forward, her hands raised in peace. "Stop. This is not the way," she pleaded. "We must understand each other, not destroy." The crowd murmured, uncertain and curious about her bravery. Jake looked at Lena, intrigued by her words. "We didn't come here to fight. We wanted to learn and explore," he said, his voice steady. "We respect your land and your culture." Lena felt the weight of her people's anger, but also saw a glimmer of hope in Jake's determination. They only acted out of fear, she whispered to him, but fear can lead to mistakes. The Xylarans hesitated, torn between tradition and the truth Lena presented. Yet their elders, led by a wise leader named Eldra, were set in their ways. To break our sacred laws is to invite destruction, Eldra declared, her voice booming through the grove. The human must pay the price. Lena's heart raced. She could feel Jake's fear, but also his strength. "What are you planning to do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "They will pay with their lives," Eldra announced, a finality in her tone. Lena gasped, understanding the severity of the situation. She stepped closer to Jake, her resolve strengthening. "Please listen. To me," Lena urged the gathered Xylarans, "death is not a solution. It will only result in more pain. Instead, let us create a pact, a chance to share our worlds." Eldra stared at Lena, her ancient eyes filled with conflict. "You dare to question our laws?" "I dare to protect life," Lena said, her voice fierce. "If you choose to kill this human, you will lose a part of yourselves. We can learn from each other and grow as one." The crowd was silent, the conflict hanging heavy in the air. Jake, feeling the moment slip away, stepped forward. "I don't want to fight," he said, glancing at Lena. "I'm here to make new friends, not enemies." Suddenly, a loud roar of uncertainty echoed from the crowd. One brave Xylaran, Aaron, stepped forward. "What if we let them go? What if we forgive?" he suggested, his voice steady. Eldra glared at him. "Speak not of foolishness. Our forebears fought for this land." "But isn't it better to fight for peace?" Aaron countered. "What if this is a chance for all of us?" Jake watched as the Xylarans began to murmur among themselves. For the first time, there was doubt in Eldra's eyes. Lena sensed that she needed to do something decisive. "I will stand beside this human," she declared. "I will take responsibility for his actions. If he harms our land again, you may take my life instead." A gasp rose from the crowd. Lena's words were powerful, and even Eldra felt the force of them. Could they truly sacrifice an innocent being? As silence enveloped the grove once more, Eldra's hardened facade began to crack. "You would risk your life for him?" she asked, disbelief clear in her voice. "Yes," Lena affirmed. "Life is precious. We have the power to choose compassion over fear." Finally, Eldra sighed, her shoulders heavy with the weight of tradition. "Perhaps we can learn from this. We will release the humans this time, on one condition. They must promise to respect our land." Jake nodded earnestly. "We promise. We want to learn and understand." Relief washed over Lena as she realized they had found common ground. The Xylarans would let Jake and his crew go, allowing room for friendship to blossom among the stars. As the humans boarded their ship, Lena and Jake exchanged a look filled with understanding. "We'll meet again, won't we?" he asked, softly. "Absolutely," Lena replied, her heart hopeful. And as the ship took off into the vastness of space, both Lena and Jake knew they had changed the fate of their worlds forever. Together, they had chosen to embrace peace rather than conflict, laying the groundwork for a future where both Zalara and Earth could thrive side by side. The harsh red sun of Xylos beat down on Anya, an alien woman with skin like polished jade and eyes like molten gold. She knelt on the cracked earth, her slender frame trembling not from fear, but from a profound sense of resignation. Around her, the battlefield was silent, save for the whistling wind carrying the scent of burnt metal and alien flora. The war, a brutal clash between her people, the Zidonians, and the human Galactic Federation, was coming to an end. And for Anya, it was ending here. Anya had been a healer, not a warrior. But when the Federation forces pushed towards her city, she had taken up a laser rifle, fighting alongside her kin to protect their home. Now her city was in ruins, her family gone, and her comrades scattered or captured. She was alone, wounded, and surrounded. She closed her eyes, picturing her mother's gentle smile and her brother's boisterous laughter. They were gone, vaporized in the blink of an eye by a Federation plasma bomb. A tear escaped her golden eye, tracing a path down her jade cheek. "It's over," she whispered to the wind, a bitter acceptance settling in her heart. She had no fight left, no hope. Suddenly, a shadow fell over her. Anya opened her eyes, squinting against the harsh sunlight. Standing before her was a human soldier, clad in the bulky gray armor of the Federation. He was tall, his face obscured by the helmet, but she could see the glint of metal in his grip, a pulse rifle aimed directly at her. Anya braced herself, expecting the end. She had seen the Federation soldiers in action. They were ruthless, efficient, and showed no mercy. She had heard stories of captured Zidonians being subjected to cruel experiments, their bodies dissected and analyzed. Death was preferable, but the shot never came. The soldier stood there, his rifle unwavering, but his posture. It was hesitant. Anya could sense it, a flicker of uncertainty in his stance. "Why don't you shoot?" she finally asked, her voice raspy from thirst and exhaustion. The soldier remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered his rifle. Anya stared at him, bewildered. Was this a trick? A prelude to something worse? The soldier removed his helmet, revealing a young face, barely older than her own. His eyes were a startling shade of blue, filled with a weariness that mirrored her own. He had a smudge of dirt on his cheek and a small scar above his eyebrow. He looked human, vulnerable. I can't," he said, his voice rough. "I can't just shoot you like that." Anya was stunned. "You're a soldier, it's your job." "My job is to protect people," he countered, his blue eyes locking onto hers. "Not execute them when they're defenseless." "But I'm the enemy," Anya protested. "I fought against you. I killed your comrades." "And I killed yours," he said, softly. "This war, it's just wrong." His words surprised her. She had always seen the humans as a monolithic force, driven by a lust for conquest. She had never considered that they might have doubts, that they might suffer from the same pain and loss as she did. "What's your name?" she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop herself. "Corporal David Riley," he replied. "And yours?" "Anya," she said. "Anya of Zidon." David extended a hand towards her. Anya hesitated, then slowly reached out and took it. His grip was firm, surprisingly gentle. "Come on," he said, pulling her to her feet. "Let's get you out of here." Anya frowned. "Where are you taking me?" "To the medical camp," he said. "You're hurt. You need help." Anya pulled her hand away. "I can't go with you. They'll experiment on me, or worse." David shook his head. "I won't let that happen. I promise." Anya looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of deceit. She saw only sincerity, a genuine desire to help. It was a foolish, irrational trust. But in that moment, she had nothing else to cling to. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll go with you." The journey to the medical camp was fraught with danger. They had to avoid Federation patrols, scavengers, and the lingering dangers of the battlefield. David was constantly on edge, scanning the horizon, his rifle always at the ready. He shared his rations with her, clean water and a nutrient paste that tasted like nothing she had ever eaten before. He bandaged her wounds with expert care, his touch surprisingly gentle. He even told her stories about his home, a small farm on a planet called Earth. Anya, in turn, told him about Zidon, about the lush forests and crystal rivers that had been destroyed by the war. She told him about her family, about her dreams for the future, dreams that now lay in ashes. As they traveled, Anya began to see David not as an enemy, but as a person. A person who had chosen compassion over hatred, kindness over cruelty. And David, in turn, saw Anya not as an alien threat, but as a fellow being, caught in the crossfire of a senseless war. When they finally reached the medical camp, Anya was terrified. The camp was a sprawling complex of tents and prefabricated buildings, filled with human soldiers and medical personnel. She felt like a caged animal, surrounded by predators. David led her to a secluded tent, where a young medic, a woman with tired eyes and a kind smile, examined her wounds. The medic, whose name was Sarah, treated Anya with respect and professionalism, ignoring the curious stares of the other patients. As Sarah cleaned and bandaged her wounds, Anya couldn't help but wonder why David was risking so much for her. He could be court-martialed, imprisoned, or even executed for treason. Why would he do it? Why? She asked him, her voice barely a whisper. Why are you helping me? David hesitated, then met her gaze. Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply. Because everyone deserves a chance, even you. Anya was deeply touched by his words. She had never encountered such selfless compassion before. It was a rare and precious thing, especially in a time of war. But their newfound peace was short-lived. A stern-faced officer entered the tent, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. He had heard rumors of a captured Zidonian being brought to the camp, and he had come to investigate. Corporal Riley, he said, his voice cold and sharp. What's going on here? David stood tall, his shoulders squared. Sir, this is Anya, a Zidonian refugee. She was wounded on the battlefield. I brought her here for medical treatment. The officer glared at Anya, his eyes filled with disdain. A refugee? She's a terrorist. She should be in a prison camp, not a medical tent. Sir, she's unarmed and injured, David protested. She poses no threat. That's not your decision to make, Corporal, the officer snapped. I'm taking her into custody. 2 heavily armed soldiers stepped forward, ready to seize Anya. David stepped in front of her, blocking their path. You'll have to go through. Me, sir, he said, his voice firm. The officer's face turned red with anger. Are you defying a direct order, Corporal? I'm protecting an innocent person, David replied, and I won't stand by and let you hurt her. The tension in the tent was palpable. Everyone knew that David was risking everything, his career, his freedom, even his life. But he stood his ground, unwavering in his commitment to protect Anya. Anya watched him, her heart filled with a mixture of fear and admiration. She had never met anyone so brave, so selfless. And in that moment, she knew that she would do anything to protect him too. The climax was approaching. The officer's next move would determine their fate. Would he back down, or would he order his soldiers to attack? The answer hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The fate of an alien woman and a human soldier rested on a knife's edge, in the heart of a war that had torn apart 2 worlds. The desert wind howled like a banshee, whipping sand against the crumbling walls of the ancient city. Sergeant Marcus Riley squinted, the setting sun turning the ochre landscape a fiery red. His squad of 5 soldiers huddled behind a toppled statue, their pulse rifles trained on the alien transport ship that had crash-landed just beyond the city limits. Anything, Riley? Corporal Jones asked, his voice tight with nerves. Marcus adjusted his binoculars. Still no movement, but the ship's power signature is fluctuating. Could be a reactor leak or they're powering up weapons. They had been tracking the ship for days since it broke through Earth's defense perimeter. Command had been clear, neutralize the threat. But Marcus felt a knot of unease in his stomach. This wasn't like the usual alien incursions. There was no invasion fleet, no attack plan, just a single crippled ship. Suddenly the ship's hatch hissed open, a ramp extended, grinding against the sand. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the dying sun. It was an alien, but unlike any Marcus had ever seen. taller than a human, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed with an inner light. It wore a simple, flowing robe, and its head was bare, revealing intricate patterns etched into its skull. "Hold your fire," Marcus barked, lowering his rifle. He raised his hands in a gesture of peace, a universal sign he hoped the alien would understand. The alien didn't react. It walked slowly down the ramp, its movements deliberate and graceful. When it reached the ground, it stopped and raised its hands, palms open. "I am Lyra," it said, its voice a melodic hum that resonated in Marcus's chest. "I come in peace. I seek only sanctuary." Marcus hesitated. He had been trained to kill aliens, not negotiate with them. But something in Lyra's voice, in the way she carried herself, told him she was telling the truth. "Sergeant, what do we do?" Jones whispered, his rifle still trained on Lyra. "Stand down," Marcus ordered. He stepped forward, his hand still raised. "I am Sergeant Marcus Riley. We are soldiers of Earth. What do you mean, sanctuary?" Lyra lowered her hand slightly. "My people, they are gone. My world, destroyed. I am the last of my kind. I fled, hoping to find refuge. But my ship was damaged. I crashed here." Her eyes flickered with pain, and Marcus felt a pang of sympathy. He had seen enough death and destruction in his life to recognize the look of utter despair. "Why come to Earth?" he asked. "We are not exactly known for our hospitality." "I studied your history," Lyra said. "Your capacity for both great cruelty and great compassion. I gambled that I would find the latter here." Marcus considered her words. He looked at his squad, their faces etched with suspicion and fear. He knew what they were thinking. This could be a trick, a prelude to an attack. But he couldn't shake the feeling that Lyra was genuine. "We need to contact command," he said. "This is beyond my authority." He turned to Jones. "Get on the comms. Tell them we have a situation." As Jones relayed the message, Marcus led Lyra away from the ship, towards the relative safety of the ruins. He gestured for her to sit on a fallen pillar. "Tell me about your people," he said. Lyra hesitated, then began to speak. She told him of her homeworld, a planet of lush forests and shimmering oceans, of a civilization that had valued knowledge, and art above all else. She spoke of the war that had consumed her world, a conflict that had started over resources, but had quickly spiraled into a genocidal rampage. "They came without warning," she said, her voice trembling. "Ships blotting out the sky. They burned our cities, poisoned our land. They hunted us like animals." Marcus listened in silence, his heart heavy with sorrow. He had seen the horrors of war, but he couldn't imagine the scale of destruction Lyra described. "Why didn't you fight back?" he asked. Lyra looked at him with sad eyes. "We were not warriors. We were scholars, artists, healers. We believed in peace, in understanding. We thought we could reason with them. We were wrong." Command finally responded. Their orders were clear: secure the alien, assess the threat, and await further instructions. Marcus knew what that meant. Lyra would be taken to a research facility, poked and prodded, treated like a lab rat. He couldn't let that happen. "They're sending a transport," he told Lyra. "They're going to take you away." Lyra nodded. "I expected as much. I am ready." "Ready for what?" Marcus asked. "For death," Lyra said, her voice calm and resigned. "I have nothing left to live for. My people are gone. My world is destroyed. I am tired of running." Marcus stared at her, his mind racing. He couldn't let her give up. He had to convince her that there was still hope, that she could find a reason to live. "No," he said firmly. "I won't let you die." Lyra looked at him, surprised. "Why? You are a soldier. It is your duty to obey orders. My duty is to protect life, Marcus said. And right now, you are the only one who can tell your people's story. You owe it to them to keep their memory alive. He stood up and paced back and forth, trying to formulate a plan. He knew he was risking everything, his career, his freedom, perhaps even his life, but he couldn't stand by and watch Lyra throw her life away. We're going to hide you, he said. We'll find a place where they can't find you, and then we'll figure out what to do next. Lyra hesitated. You would risk so much for a stranger? You're not a stranger, Marcus said. You're a survivor, and that's something I understand. He turned to his squad. Jones, Miller, I need your help. Are you with me? Jones and Miller exchanged glances. They knew the risks, but they also knew Marcus. They had fought alongside him, trusted him with their lives. We're with you, Sergeant, Jones said. All right, Marcus said. Here's the plan. He outlined his plan, a desperate gamble that relied on their knowledge of the terrain and their ability to evade detection. It was risky, but it was their only chance. As the transport ship descended from the sky, Marcus and his squad led Lyra into the heart of the ruins. They moved quickly and quietly, using the shadows and the crumbling walls to conceal their movements. They found a hidden chamber beneath the ruins, a place that had been forgotten for centuries. This will have to do, Marcus said. It's not much, but it's safe. He turned to Lyra. We'll bring you food and water. Stay here and don't make a sound. Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Marcus. You have given me hope. Marcus smiled. Don't thank me yet. We still have a long way to go. He left Lyra in the chamber and rejoined his squad. They watched as the transport ship landed and the soldiers disembarked, searching for the alien. They're not going to give up easily, Jones said. I know, Marcus said. But we're not going to give up either. He looked at his squad, his heart filled with determination. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing impossible odds. But they had something that the enemy didn't, hope. And as long as they had hope, they had a chance. The hunt had begun. The alien woman was prepared to die, but the human soldier refused to let her. The fate of Lyra, and perhaps the future of Earth, rested on their shoulders. In a distant galaxy far from Earth, on a lush green planet named Valoria, two very different beings were about to meet. Valoria was known for its beautiful scenery, with vast fields of golden flowers and towering mountains that touched the sky. The air was fresh, and the days were filled with sunlight. But today, a dark shadow loomed over this peaceful place. On one side of the planet, an alien woman named Seraphina sat alone. She had long, flowing purple hair and glowing golden skin. Seraphina was part of a small tribe that valued harmony and peace. However, a great danger approached. A group of human soldiers, searching for new lands to conquer, had landed on Valoria. They were led by a brave but conflicted soldier named Captain Jake Anderson. Captain Jake was strong and respected among his peers, but he was not without doubt. He often thought about what it meant to be a soldier and whether all of their battles were just. As he prepared for the mission to capture the alien territory, he felt a strange pull, as if something was urging him to pause and reconsider. Meanwhile, Seraphina had learned about the human soldiers' plans. Her tribe's elders had warned that they were ruthless. The humans sought to take control of Valoria and its resources. Seraphina felt a heavy weight in her heart. In her culture, surrender was seen as a sign of strength, not weakness. She believed that the best way to protect her people was to offer herself to the soldiers. She prepared to meet them, a gesture of peace but also an acceptance of fate. The sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow across the sky. Captain Jake and his squad marched into the territory. The soldiers were equipped with advanced weapons, their stares cold and focused. In the valley, Serafina appeared, standing tall against the backdrop of emerald hills. She raised her hands to show she meant no harm. The human soldiers stopped, surprised by her beauty and bravery. Captain Jake stepped forward, his heart racing. He had seen many alien species, yet this one felt different. "Who are you?" Jake shouted, trying to sound authoritative. "I am Serafina, guardian of this land," she replied, her voice calm and serene. "I come to speak for my people. We do not wish for war, but for peace." Jake felt a connection with her words. "What do you offer?" he asked, intrigued. "I wish to surrender myself to you," Serafina answered, her eyes glistening in the fading light. "In exchange, I ask that you spare my people and allow us to live freely on our land." Jake's heart sank. He had not expected such a response. It was a heavy price for peace. He looked at his soldiers, who were eagerly awaiting his command. It would be easy to take her. They could capture her and control the Valorian people. But something inside Jake resisted the thought. "What if we do not want to take you?" Jake found himself asking. "What if we could find another way?" Serafina's eyes widened in surprise. "You would refuse to take what you could easily have?" "Yes," Jake replied, his voice steady. "I believe we can coexist. We don't have to destroy each other." Some soldiers muttered in disbelief, but Jake stood firm. He felt a bond with Serafina. It was not just about land or power. There was something deeper. The tribes of his people had always been at war, and yet here was a chance for peace. Jake could sense that their meeting was meant to change them both. Serafina felt hopeful, but knew the danger was not over. "If you truly wish to protect my people, there are those among you who will not agree. They will want power. They will want control." "I will stand against them," Jake vowed, feeling a sense of responsibility. He knew it wouldn't be easy. "But I will need your help. My soldiers need to understand your ways if we are to protect your home." Serafina nodded. "Then let us move together. We can teach them and show them who we really are." As night fell, the soldiers reluctantly gathered around a campfire. Tensions were thick in the air. Jake stood before them. "We have a guest tonight," he announced, motioning for Serafina to join him. Some soldiers shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to think. "This is Serafina," Jake said, his voice booming over the crackling fire. "She represents her people. We will listen to her and learn from her." Serafina took a deep breath. "Thank you for welcoming me," she said softly. "I come from a land where nature and spirit are one. I wish to share our ways, our knowledge." At first, some soldiers were hostile, throwing questions and accusations. They wanted to know why they should trust an alien. But Jake stood strong by Serafina's side. He shared his doubts about war, the pain it caused, and how peace was worth fighting for. As the night wore on, stories began to change minds. Serafina spoke of the beauty of Valoria, of the importance of unity with nature. She described the festivals of her tribe, filled with music and laughter. Slowly, the soldiers listened, fascinated by tales of starry skies and glowing flowers. Captain Jake saw something in their eyes, a flicker of understanding. He felt hope. Maybe this was how peace could be born. Maybe he could save not just Serafina, but her entire world. Days passed, and the soldiers learned more about each other. The tension that once filled the air was replaced with laughter and friendship. However, not all were convinced. A faction of soldiers, led by Lieutenant Gregg, still wanted to claim Valoria for themselves. They believed that taking power was the only way to ensure their own safety. One evening, as the sun set, Captain Jake caught wind of Gregg's plan to attack Serafina's tribe. He quickly gathered his loyal soldiers. "We cannot let this happen," he insisted. "We've made a promise to protect them." Serafina stood with him, empowered by his bravery. Together, they confronted Gregg and his followers. "If you attack, You will destroy what we have built together, Serafina pleaded. In the end, they will never trust us, Greg sneered. We cannot let our guard down. But Jake, fueled by determination, took a step forward. True strength lies not in conquering but in understanding. We fight for peace. Tension filled the air as the soldiers squabbled. But slowly, some began to side with Jake, realizing that this new path of peace was worth fighting for. Serafina's courage inspired them. It was not just about two worlds, but about saving both. Finally, a decision was made. Jake and Serafina would lead a gathering with the tribe and the soldiers. Together, they planned for a way forward, a chance to unite Valoria and its new visitors into a single community. It would take time, understanding and love, but it was a start. In the end, Captain Jake stood among the tribe and his soldiers. Serafina was by his side, radiating hope. The light of cooperation and understanding shone brightly over Valoria, signaling a new dawn for both humans and Valorians. Peace was not merely a dream, but a reality they would build together. They had faced the dark, and together they chose life.